Our program today is Spanish Philippine Issues of 1859. I'm your speaker. Much of this material is actually based on Nigel Gooding's website. Address is provided here at nigelgooding.co.uk. And it's a great website. I can't emphasize that enough for everything Spanish, Philippines, and Philippine philately. So definitely check out this website. I couldn't have put this presentation together without that website. So just wanted to highlight that, that this material, this presentation is based on that. And it's going to feature stamps from my collection, Nigel Gooding's collection, of course. There's a few items there from Christian Prus, and also an item there from Nestor Nunez. And these are from that website. So moving on, issues of 1859. These were issued on January 1st, 1859. This issue consists of two denominations, a 5 cuartos vermilion stamp and a 10 cuartos rose-colored stamp. It was lithographed by the company of M. Perez y Hijo in Manila. And what makes this special is that it's actually a Philippine printed stamp as opposed to stamps printed in Spain. So to me, that it makes it a very special stamp. It's also a workhorse of the early Spanish Philippine posts. In most beginner to intermediate collections, this issue is often the earliest Isabella stamps that you will find in those collections. So it's a stamp most of us have, and this is a great opportunity to learn a little bit more about the stamps. So we'll start off with the 5 cuartos issue. You can see that this stamp is pictured on the screen here. It's known as Scott number 10, with color varieties known as 10A and 10B. It comes in shades of vermilion, scarlet, and orange, really distinct shades, especially when you put them side by side. They were issued for domestic mail under ½ an ounce, also known as a single weight interior postal rate. They were printed in blocks of 4 varieties, also called a cliché, and each block is surrounded by an outer frame. You can see that here in this photograph, that each block of 4 is surrounded by a frame. And there were a total of 15,000 stamps issued between 1859 and 1861. So this was a true workhorse of the Spanish Philippine posts during those years. This stamp is from the Nigel Gooding website and from his collection. This is a sheet of the 5 cuartos issue, showing that it was printed using what they call the first lithographic stone in sheets of 56, or 8 rows by 7 across. And you can see that the clichés of 4 are positioned as such, with the 7th row breaking up that block of 4 and rearranged, as you can see here. This information, again, is from the Nigel Gooding website. That 5 cuartos issue was printed from 5 distinct lithographic stones or plates in sheet compositions of 56, which is 8 by 7, 192, which was 12 clichés by 4, and 130, which is 13 by 10. This slide illustrates the layout of the first stone and of the second stone. And you can see in yellow how we talked about the 7th row being basically the block of 4 rearranged to make up that column. And the second stone, similar, but it was placed on the left side of the sheet and rearranged as well. The third stone, I think, is the largest stone at 192 stamps. And you can see that basically the sheet was divided into 4 panes, each of the panes having 4 clichés. Each sheet was arranged in 4 panes of 48 stamps each, with a gutter in between each of the 4 panes on each sheet. As you can see, it's one of the largest. It's the largest composition sheet. I personally have not seen one. I've seen some in Spanish auction catalogs, but this must be quite a sight to see. All right. The 5 cuartos issue was issued in a 4th stone and a 5th stone in a composition shown on this slide of 130, 13 rows by 10 columns. These were issued in 1860 and in 1861, and these new stones were prepared as mentioned. These were the workhorses, so these were printed to meet the demand, the growing demand. But what's interesting about this, they crammed the stamps onto the sheet, so most sheets, but not all, are without the outer frame line around the blocks. So these are interesting compositions. Again, I have not seen any of these personally, but these have appeared in auction catalogs. So let's look at some of the usages of the 5 quartos issue. This cover is from my collection. It represents a double weight domestic rate cover with a pair of the 5 quartos to Manila, dated 11 April 1862. What's interesting about this cover is that you'll notice that Abril, which is the Spanish for April, appears as 8B. It looks like a misspelling. It's unknown when that the canceller was corrected. This cover is from the Christian Proust collection and was posted on the Philippine Stamps website. It's a printed matter circular mailed from the Philippines to Bilbao, Spain. It's franked with 2 Scott number 10s, canceled on 4 August 1859 in Manila, with a small beige circular date stamp. Very nice piece. This is an example of the 5 quartos issue used with official cancels. And now moving on to the 10 quartos issue. The 10 quartos issue is known as Scott number 11. It comes in shades of rose and lilac. It was issued for domestic mail between ½ an ounce and 1 ounce, the double weight interior postal rate. Just similar to the 5 quartos, it was printed in blocks of 4 varieties, called a cliché, and each block surrounded by an outer frame line, as you can see here. A total of 3,000 stamps were issued between 1859 and 1863. A little bit about the blocks of 4. You can see that each of these are slightly different from each other, which helps you distinguish the position. You can see, like, for example, the bust. You can see how this one is pointed, this one's squared. There's the facial features are a little different. You can see that just minor differences, and you can figure out the position within the block of 4. Also, that frame line that I was talking about, usually when you see these as singles, you can see the frame line, a portion of the frame line on some of the stamps, and it'll help you also identify which of the 4 your stamp is from. This is a sheet of the 10 quartos. This is from my collection. This shows the layout. Apparently for the 10 quartos, only the first lithographic stone was used in this layout. Again, blocks of 4 is laid out here, with the 7th column breaking up that block of 4 and laid out to fill up that last column. Here's an example of the 10 quartos usage. It's an official cancel. One item to note about the 10 quartos, it is difficult to find in used condition. It's more often found in unused or mint condition. So any used examples are quite scarce. Here's an example from the Christian Proust collection. It's a used example of the 10 quartos with a nice cancel of 6 May 1863. But what's also special about this particular issue is that the little white dot just behind the bust here represents that this is from position 48. It's a constant variety on the sheet, and it from position 48. So this is a very scarce example of a used position 48 stamp. This is from the Nigel Gooding collection. This is a very rare cover showing usage of the 10 quartos issue, dated 5 March 1862 from Manila to Madrid. It has a really nice Paria cancel, which was used not only in the Philippines, but also from the Spanish Antilles, which is Cuba and Puerto Rico. With this, you can see from the features of the stamp that it's from position 3 of the block of 4. And as I said, it's a very scarce example of this usage. As mentioned on Nigel's website, only 2 covers are recorded, and this is the only circular cover recorded for this particular issue. So thank you, Nigel, for posting that online. For those who like to specialize a little bit more, the stamps are also known, since they were used over several years and were printed in large numbers, relatively large numbers. They do come in a variety of shades, but also of different kind of papers. And you can see that depending on the 5 quartos and the 10 quartos, the 10 quartos comes in basically wove paper, since it was printed from the first lithographic stone. But the 5 quartos exists in different shades, but also on different papers. There's wove paper, there's laid paper, which is typically found in a shade of pale orange. There's also thick paper and thin paper. So these are quite distinctive. If you have many copies, you can find out oftentimes which printings they may have come from based on the shade and based on the type of paper that was used. So this is from Nigel's website. Definitely something to look at if you are interested in specializing in this particular issue. This stamp shows a variety of the 5 quartos issue, and this is from Nestor Nunez's collection. There's a block of 6 that are known to exist with a watermark, and this is an illustration of the watermark. An A with a period and an unidentified letter, which could be an F, could be a P or B. And interestingly, it's printed on thick laid or ribbed paper. So yeah, I've not encountered a watermark variety of this issue. So this definitely is a scarce or rare stamp. Thank you, Nestor, for posting that online. For the 10 quartos issues, there are varieties and errors. As mentioned earlier, position 48 is represented by the dot behind the bust, but there are also other constant variety positions that occur on the sheet. There's on the 27th stamp of the sheet, there's a variety where there's a dash after the 10, between the 10 and the C of quartos, and that happens in position 27. There's also a constant variety on the 38th stamp on the sheet, where there's a dot which occurs between the 10 and the CS for quartos on the stamp. These can also be found on Nigel's website. Now, when collecting this issue, one often encounters forgeries, particularly for this issue. And one of the most common forgeries that I think many of us have encountered at one time or another of the 5 quartos issues is the stamp called Gooding number 10 F1. It was first mentioned by Harradine as the first forgery. What's interesting about this is that you can see that it doesn't have the typical frame line that exists around the 4 stamps. There's no hint of any stamp butting up against it. It's basically a single frame stamp, and oftentimes you'll find this stamp in older collections. It's a very good forgery. It at first glance, it looks just like the genuine stamps, but without the frame line and with the wide margins like this, it's definitely a giveaway that it's a fake. It's a forgery of that 5 quartos issue. Another example of a forgery of the 5 quartos issue that is often encountered is Harradine's second forgery, which Gooding calls Gooding number 10 F2. And as you can see here, it's much more crudely printed, and this also is often encountered in older collections. For the 10 quartos, there's also a 10 quartos forgery that uses the same die as the 5 quartos forgery. This one is known as Gooding number 11 F2, and you can see that it also has the same features as the genuine stamps, but it lacks the outer frame line that would surround the cliché of 4. So that's another giveaway. This stamp is also encountered most often in old collections as well. And another forgery encountered is for the 10 quartos is Gooding 11F3, which you can see on the screen here. It at first glance appears like a genuine stamp. However, it doesn't have the features of the genuine stamp. So it definitely is helpful to have a block of 4 that you can compare your singles to. And if it doesn't have the features of the genuine stamp, then it is most likely a forgery. This is an example. As a single, it could probably pass, but in direct comparison with the block of 4, it'll be called out as a forgery rather easily. So those issues of 1859 had a second life after the Spanish Revolution, which dethroned Queen Isabel II. So on September 30, 1868, the Revolutionary Committee in Spain decreed that habilitado por la nación be, or made valid by the new government, be surcharged on all remaining stamps, while colonies would await the delivery of new stamps printed in Madrid. On October 21st, 1868, 27 metal hand stamps were sent to the civil governor in the Philippines. Fortunately for us, all dies sent were of the Vizcaya type, which you can see up here in the upper corner. This is the type of hand stamp that was provided to the Philippines. So the dies were received in December of 1868, and then the stamps on hand were surcharged at the post office. So over a 6-year period of time, many Queen Isabella stamps were overprinted in order to meet the increasing demand for stamps. They basically started with the stamps that were in current circulation and worked their way backwards, so that by 1874, they finally reached issues of 1859 and 1854 and hand stamped those. As you can imagine, with a surcharge being applied by hand, the stamps were applied in a variety of ways. The hand stamp was applied vertically, reading upward or downward, diagonal, reading upward or downward, inverted, doubled, and any combination thereof. So here's an example of the HPLN, as I'll call it, HPLN hand stamp applied on a 5 quartos issue. This stamp is from the Nigel Gooding collection. One thing to note about this particular stamp is that it is an extremely rare stamp. I think Nigel found the discovery stamp. It's rather odd to think that a stamp like this was not recorded prior, considering how the 10 quartos is often found overprinted. It was surmised that the 5 quartos overprinted must exist, but it was many years until one was discovered. As mentioned, the 5 quartos was the workhorse of the Spanish postal system, Philippine postal system. So one can surmise that many of the 5 quartos issues were already used up by then, with only very few surviving to be available to be overprinted in 1874. So this is an extremely rare stamp. This is on Nigel Gooding's website, and definitely something that all of us should keep an eye out for should we find another example of it. What's more readily found are the 10 quartos rose issue overprinted. This is a block of 4 overprinted. I believe this is the reprint. As you can see that the A is smaller than the original issue. But this is also a beautiful example of the block of 4 being overprinted with HPLN. Here's an example of the HPLN overprint being used locally. This is the 10 quartos with a black circular date cancel with Manila above, stars below, and with a date. The date's not clear, but it's one of the rare usages of this issue. This is from Nestor Nunez's collection. This is the 10 quartos issue as an error with one stamp overprinted and the other one not. This is a beautiful rare example of the 10 quartos overprinted. So that concludes the presentation. If anyone has any questions, please feel free to ask your question.